Right, so my plan is to give you a very quick introduction to ZAP. It'll be as quick as possible, because it's kind of difficult talking to an audience where you can't look into your eyes. I'm not sure who's there and what background you've got. So I'm just going to give a kind of quick introduction and then let you ask questions. So let's try and share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Great. So this is a very quick introduction to OWASP ZAP. My name is Simon Bennetts. I'm the OWASP ZAP project lead, and I work for Mozilla. In the security team, well, I think I'm in an ops team now. It changes. So, very quick introduction. ZAP is an easy-to-use web application pen test tool. So it's a tool for finding vulnerabilities in web applications. It is, like all OWASP projects, completely free and open source, and it is an OWASP flagship project. This means it's one of the most mature projects and one of the ones that's most recommended for people to start using. It's ideal for beginners, and actually that's how I started off. My background is in development, and I really started ZAP to learn about security and help others learn about security as well. But it's also now used by professionals. I actually started off by saying I think the tagline was the security tool for developers. And after I started talking at various conferences, a lot of security people came up to me and said, it's not just for developers, we use it as well, which is one reason I changed it. But it is ideal for developers, especially for automated security tests. This is one area I think ZAP shines. So it is very good for automation and including in a kind of development pipeline. It is included in all of the major security distributions, and there's toolswatch.org. They run a yearly survey, the top security tool of the year, top free security tool of the year, free or open source. They can be either. And we won last year. Well, it's just been announced. So ZAP is the top free security tool. We were also included on the ThoughtWorks technology radar in May last year. But I should always say, there are no silver bullets in security, and ZAP isn't one of those because there aren't any. We do have some principles. I've mentioned the free and open source thing, and that is very important. There is no pro version of ZAP. There will never be a pro version of ZAP. And I kind of stress that so that if you are looking to contribute, you know that we won't take your contributions and make some money out of them. It's going to be free. And one of the reasons I started ZAP as a community project was I thought there needed to be a security project which was a community-based one. And at the time, there wasn't. So involvement is very actively encouraged. I think the community side of ZAP is probably its greatest strength. It is cross-platform, so it will run on anything with a JVM, and that includes Raspberry Pi. I'm actually working on there, and we have Docker images as well. We actually we release ZAP. We've got weekly releases, and we release them weekly on Docker as well. But we also have stable ones as well, and they tend to come out every 3 or 4 months. We try and make it as easy to use as possible, and I'd say that with some caveats. Security tools are by nature not easy to use. We're trying to do weird things, but we think ease of use is very important, even for security professionals. So this is a priority, and that means if you report a usability issue, then we treat those just as importantly as functional issues. It's easy to install. I've played with lots of security tools, and some of them are a complete nightmare. So you need a JVM, and that's it. It is unusually for security tools internationalized, so that's not many of the commercial ones can say that, and it's fully documented. But again, there are caveats. A lot of the documentation has been written by developers rather than professional authors, technical authors. So the documentation could always be better, but it is pretty much fully documented. But we know that ZAP will never be all and end all, so try and make sure that we work as well as possible with other tools. And where possible, we reuse well-regarded components, so we don't try and reinvent the wheel if there's something we can use. And we also actually create components that can be reused. Zest is an example of scripting, graphical scripting language. So that was created as a component that other tools can use as a standalone thing, and some of them do. Some statistics for you. So I released ZAP in September of 2010, a fork of Paros, for those of you who remember that. The last main release was 2.4.3, which is in December last year. That's been downloaded over 75,000 times. We get about 1,000 downloads a day. And we just decided that we're probably going to aim for end of March, beginning of April for the next version, which will be 2.5.0. It has been, or is being translated into over 30 languages, and we've got over 160 translators working on it, which I'm particularly pleased about. And for those of you who think it might just be a fork of Paros, last time I checked, of the code we include in the main release, not including all the add-ons, only 20% is the original Paros code and 80% is new ZAP code. Some stats for you. I don't know if you've seen openhub.net, but it's got statistics on loads of open source projects, thousands and thousands of them. It is in the very high activity category, which means it's up there with Linux and Firefox. It is by far the most active OWASP code project. Obviously the documentation projects aren't on there, but probably count as the most active OWASP project anyway, as documentation projects don't tend to get updated quite so quickly. We've had 108 contributors, code contributors, 57 of those are counted as active. Apparently it's 281 years of effort, so quite how they work that out, I really don't know. But all these statistics are available online and not compiled by me. And I'm just going to finish off by mentioning some different ways you can use ZAP, because you can use ZAP in quite a few different ways, really. So you can use it as a point-and-shoot tool. You can just type a URL into the Quick Start tab and kick it off. What it will then do is it will spider the site and then run an active scan on it, and you'll get passive scanning as a side effect of doing the spider. That can be effective for a simple web application, but if you've got anything like authentication, then you'll just hit the login page and not go any further. What we kind of recommend is, definitely a step up from there is proxying via ZAP and then scanning. And particularly if you're actually doing this manually, that's very effective. But one thing, that does require somebody sitting there manually. So another option is to actually use regression tests, and that's something which we also recommend, something we're doing in Mozilla. It can definitely be used for manual pen testing. I know a lot of pen testers who use it, and quite a few pen testers, professional pen testers actually proxy several security tools together. That's one thing I kind of say, that if you're a developer or somebody new to application security or QA or whatever, then ZAP might be the only web security tool that you need. If you're a professional pen tester, then you should know how to use all the top pen testing tools, and ZAP is one of them. So you should have a good idea of what it can do, and then you should use the right tool for the right job. You should understand all the tool's strengths and weaknesses. So the automated security regression test is something I think is something where ZAP is becoming used more and more, and we're definitely using that in Mozilla. And this is where you actually, a very effective way of exploring the application is to use your QA tests, if you have any, and hopefully you have. So if you've got QA tests using something like Selenium, then you can proxy those through ZAP, and that allows ZAP to build up its picture of the application. And it's ZAP's understanding of the application, which is the most important thing. If you just use the spider, it'll be okay, but typically, there'll be a form that says add a user, and it'll put ZAP in, and an error message will come back saying it's got to be an email address or something like that. A human user can see that and change and put in ZAP at zap.com or whatever, whereas the spider can't. But your QA tests will hopefully put in some valid data as well as invalid data, and will therefore get past those steps and explore more of your application. I've used it for debugging as well, and quite a few people do, I understand. It's very useful if you've got if you're working on a client-side application which has got both client and server-side code. You can put ZAP in between. You can see what's going on, helps you debug things. It actually allows you to, because it's an intercepting proxy, you can change things on the fly. So rather than actually having to go back and recode things and redeploy, you can just change stuff on the fly and see what if that fixes the problem, and then go and change the underlying bug or the underlying code. And you can also use it as part of a larger security program. There are quite a few tools now that using ZAP as one of the security engines behind them. So there's a tool called ThreadFix, which has become very popular. Minion from Mozilla, Salesforce have got Chimera. There's quite a few like that, and they're all using ZAP as one of their main scanning engines. And that's pretty much all I've got prepared. I just wanted to give that very quick overview and then pass it over and see what you wanted to know.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Simon. Let's give a hand to this fantastic remote presentation. If you have any questions, please raise your hand so I can give you the mic so Simon can hear you. Any questions? Then I've got a question for you, Simon. Can you just briefly talk about WebApp and what it is and where is ZAP in that?
Okay, so WebApp is it's an open source project which is all about basically working out how effective scanners are. So there's a guy called Shay who runs it, and he actually tests all of the security, just loads and loads of security tools against it. And these kind of projects are actually very valuable, and they make it a lot easier for people like us, people who develop security tools. So we're using WebApp to test ZAP, and we actually, the way we're using it at the moment, so we have Dockerized versions of ZAP. We have somebody else has developed a Dockerized version of WebApp. So on an AWS server, several times a day, we pull down the latest image for WebApp, the latest weekly image for ZAP, and then we run ZAP against it with a whole range of different configurations. Then we actually run analysis on the results, and we produce a chart and a load of stats, and then we push that to GitHub and to GitHub pages as well. So there's something called ZapBot. If you Google ZapBot, you should find it, and that shows all of the results. So it actually shows you all of the scripts behind it, so you can see exactly what we're running, how we're running it, and we publish all the results as well. So you can see how well ZAP is doing. So we run the most recent full release, the 2.4.3. We run a weekly release. We run a weekly release with alpha quality add-ons, with different attack strengths, a whole range of things. So we're trying to use that to test ZAP as effectively as we can. We want to extend that to use other vulnerable applications as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Any more questions before we move on to the break? Yeah, question. Okay.
Hi Simon, thank you for the presentation.
Pleasure.
I have a quick question on a similar tool that I used from OWASP that was Pantera long time ago. And is there any part of Pantera code that is included into ZAP? The thing that I liked of Pantera was that it was a sort of remote security proxy, it was like a remote ZAP proxy with some automated testing, and you can also use it to provide results to other people. They are not used to this tool, so they have this common web interface. So, yeah.
There is, to my knowledge, there's none of the Pantera code in ZAP. One thing we did announce last year is one thing we have started working on, something we call ZAP as a service. So the idea is, ZAP you can run ZAP in many different ways already. You can run it as a standalone, your desktop tool with the UI. You can run it in line as a command line tool, and you can run it as a daemon, a headless daemon. But they are still single process tool instances. What we've planning on doing, what we started, is to create ZAP as a service. This will be a distributed version of that ZAP, which is highly scalable and will have a web interface, and it will be suitable for putting online or putting on an intranet for people to use. So that will have a much simpler interface, but we will still try to make it possible to get at all the depth of information that ZAP records and provides to you. So that is something that we are actively working on. I haven't got a date for it yet. It's always difficult to judge with open source tools who will be able to work on it and how much time they can spend and how much time I can spend on it myself. We're not doing Mozilla stuff. But that is definitely a direction we're going in. And that's actually getting back to some of my roots, because before I started ZAP, I actually worked on these large-scale distributed systems. So I feel very confident we can get there. It's just finding the time. And there's a lot of work to do to change a desktop tool into a highly scalable, highly performant online service. But we know exactly what we need to do, and we are getting there. It's just a question of putting the time in.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Simon. Okay, guys, we now have a 10 to 15 minute break, and after which we'll have the second talk. So help yourself to the pizzas, beer, and drinks. And Simon, thank you very much one more time. Yeah.
Cheers.
To stay and watch the second talk, we're just gonna we will carry on broadcasting.
I've got some beers to drink. See you later. Cheers.